Hi, and welcome to the webinar. You're about to hear about transitioning to college. Our Get to College counselors will be going through the steps that your students need to take to enroll in college this fall. Hi, I'm Brandy Lindell. I'm the Assistant Director and College Counselor at the Get to College Center in Ocean Springs. Get to College is a program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. We have 3 centers throughout the state of Mississippi, one in South Haven, one in Jackson, and one where I am in Ocean Springs. Best of all, the Get to College program is absolutely free, and students and parents can make appointments in our centers for personalized counseling, filing FAFSA and state aid. We can even help with resume, essay, and interviewing skills. Recently, we launched these webinars as our virtual presentations, and we have a 2-way text messaging campaign that you will hear about later. Now, I will be moderating the program today, but I'd like to introduce you to your presenters. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Stephen Brown. I'm the Assistant Director of Outreach at the Jackson Get to College Center.
And hi, my name is Danny Thompson. I'm an Assistant Director of State Outreach, but I'm housed out of the Jackson Center.
I'm going to start with some housekeeping details before we start our webinar. This webinar is recorded and we cannot see or hear you, but everyone who registered for the webinar will receive a link for the recorded version. You can ask questions during the webinar. There is a Q&A box that you can ask questions about the presentation. We also have a chat box that you can use for technical difficulties. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Stephen Brown to start our webinar.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So one of the first things that we like to speak about with parents and students is, of course, choosing the right school, because college is not a one-size-fits-all type of process. The college that their best friends are going to may or may not be the best school for them. The college that you guys went to, that our parents went to, may or may not be the best school for the student. And like I always say, the college that their high school sweetheart is going to may or may not be the best college choice for them. And clearly, if they choose to go to a school just because their high school sweetheart is going there, I tell students that's one of the single dumbest decisions that they can make in their life. Okay, so we can't choose schools based on those factors. So we want to know, what is going to help me make a final decision? What's going to be the best fit school for me? So some things you want to consider also are the academics, first of all. Not every college has every major. So one of the first things that students should do, if they're pretty sure that they know what they want to major in, besides doing more research and going on job shadowing days, when they finally decide what they want to major in, they should make sure that that school has that particular major. For example, for students that are interested in pursuing a degree in nursing, let's say they want to become an RN. Okay, well, like a registered nurse. Well, Mississippi State doesn't have a nursing program. Jackson State does not have a nursing program. There are other great schools that already have nursing programs that may be a better fit for those students. If a student is interested in petroleum engineering, Mississippi State is the only school in the state with a petroleum engineering program. So make sure that your students are finding out what schools have their particular major, and they can also find out whether or not the school's program is prestigious, whether or not they excel in that particular major. Other than that, other things that may concern your student is the academic rigor of a particular program or college. So I would also look into that. Your students may want to be a member of the honors college at a particular school. Well, we want to find out all these things early on, find out what the requirements are, and make sure that they're not only academically successful, but also academically satisfied with their college decision. Another factor that I know parents love to talk about is the financial side. Is this school going to be the best financial decision for me? And colleges, once again, you have a range of different costs of attendance. For example, let's say a student wanted to start off at a community college. Well, the majority of our local community colleges in the state of Mississippi, the tuition for 1 year is right around $3,000, give or take a couple hundred, okay? And that's for classes. Now, if a student wanted to attend a 4-year university, let's say they want to live on campus and have a meal plan, where a lot of our 4-year institutions require freshmen to do, then the cost of attendance total could be somewhere around $25,000 for that particular student. So we want to already be thinking about not only do I have a good enough ACT score and do I only have good enough grades to get into the school, but also will I be eligible for any scholarships? Is this school financially going to be the best fit for me? Speaking of that, we also have some students. This may not change where they end up ultimately, but it could also give them a change of how they get to that degree program. What I mean by that is some students may start off at a community college, which I said in a lot of cases is going to be much cheaper, and then transfer as a junior into a four-year university or transfer after their freshman year into a four-year university. But we just want to make sure that they are considering all these factors, not just where my friends are going, but is this school going to be the best financial fit for me? And while I'm on that topic, when we're trying to find out the total cost of attendance, a buzzword that you might want to become familiar with is the net price calculator. Every college's website is mandated that they have to have something called the net price calculator, which will give students and parents a full breakdown of the estimated cost of attendance for that school. So that includes tuition, room, meal plan, books, transportation, personal costs, fees, all those different items. So I would definitely make sure that you're taking advantage of that to see the total cost of the school. Then also, another thing you want to look at is the environment, because we have a lot of students also that are interested in pursuing colleges that are out of state, okay? We always encourage students, whether it's in-state or out of state, to actually visit the campus and see it up close. For example, a school like Georgia State University. It's a great school. It is in the middle of downtown Atlanta. So it's a very urban environment. For some students, that works perfectly fine for their college decision, and some would rather be in more of a smaller town or in a more rural area. That's perfectly fine. Just there's no right or wrong when it comes to this. Just make sure that that school and its environment has every factor that the student is interested in and that they're looking for in choosing the right college. Also, the social life is a big, important factor as well. There are a lot of students that are pursuing colleges, particularly for student organizations. They want to be a member of a certain student chapter of a trade organization like Public Relations Student Society of America or different business fraternities. Even when we're talking about Greek fraternities and sororities, these social and community service organizations, not every school has every particular Greek organization. So if you know for a fact that is something that your student is interested in pursuing when they get to college, you might want to do the research on that as well. So I'm gonna move forward, and make sure if you have any questions, if there's anything that we haven't covered, feel free to let us know. We can answer in the chat or at the end of this presentation. Now, once again, like I said, we have different options. College is not a one-size-fits-all type of process. So you have different types of schools. You have 2-year schools and 4-year schools. You have community colleges and you have universities. So for students that are pursuing just an associate's degree or technical programs or even planning to get credit so they can eventually transfer into a university, community colleges are an excellent option for students that want to go that route. For example, if a student wants to become a registered nurse, Hines, Holmes, Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, Jones, there's a ton of different schools that have a nursing program that they can complete in 2 years at a community college. Also, for students that are pursuing technical programs, like they want to do information systems technology, or vet tech programs, physical therapy assistant. There's a lot of programs they can complete with an associate's degree, so that they don't even need to pursue a bachelor's degree. But if they do, once again, you have that option to start off at a community college and then transfer to a university. But you just want to make sure that the colleges have the career fields in the majors that your student is looking for. Now, also, at this time, it'd be important for your student to make sure that they're applying not only for admission, but also from scholarships. Some schools will have all of this in one application. Some, they'll have a separate application strictly for scholarships. That's not the same thing as the admissions application. So make sure that your student is completing all of those, finding out about departmental scholarships, and basically turning over every rock to make sure that they can find the money that's necessary to help them be able to pay for that program. So which is a great segue to what I'm talking about, two of the different types of financial aid, which is ways that we can pay for college. One is federal aid and the other is state aid. Now, to determine your eligibility for federal aid, students have to complete what is called the FAFSA, or the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So the FAFSA is based on your household size and family income. And once again, it can be awarded in a few different programs. Students it will determine their eligibility for the federal Pell Grant, which is a need-based grant. It can determine the eligibility for federal work study, where students can have a job on campus, or even federal student loans. At this point, some colleges may even possibly use the FAFSA to determine their eligibility for additional institutional aid. So it's definitely a great thing for you to do to get the FAFSA completed. And this is one of the free services that we offer at the Woodward Hines Education Foundation, along with our community partners in colleges in your area. And the other one is state aid. And this is money that's coming from the state of Mississippi. It's only for Mississippi students who are staying in state for college. And it comes in three different programs. You have Mississippi Eminent Scholars Grant, or MESG, which is if a student has at least a 29 on the ACT and a 3.5 GPA. And there's no income requirement for that grant. So if a student qualifies for it and they apply for it by September 15th, and let's make sure we get this cleared up because there's normally a lot of confusion. If your student is a senior in high school now, they have until September 15th of their freshman year of college to apply. So September 15th of that particular year that they're in. So definitely want to take advantage of that. As also from the state of Mississippi, you have MTAG, Mississippi Tuition Assistance Grant, which is if a student has at least a 15 on the ACT and a 2.5 GPA, which will award them $500 per year for their first 2 years, then $1,000 per year for their junior and senior year. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but with MESG, it's $2,500 per year. Then the state of Mississippi also offers a grant called the HELP Grant, which does have a need component. Students have to have at least a 20 on the ACT, at least a 2.5 GPA. They have to have met all the IHL curriculum requirements, so it's their CPC or college prep curriculum plus one additional advanced elective. And if their parents meet the income requirements. I don't want to go too deep into it because the income requirement may change year to year depending on funding. But as of right now, if a student is the only child in the household and their parents' income is $39,500 or less, then that student may be eligible for the HELP grant. And for each additional sibling that's in the household that's under the age of 21, you can add $5,000 to that number. For example, if you have a senior in college that has at least a 20 on the ACT, they meet the academic requirements, they have at least a 2.5 GPA, and they have one sibling that's in the household that is in ninth grade, and that student's parents can make, or the household income can be up to $44,500 or less, and that student could qualify for the HELP grant. The deadline to apply for it is March 31st, and the deadline to submit all of the documentation is April 30th. I don't know if I mentioned it, but MTAG, the deadline is September 15th, as is with MESG. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Danny. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to him so he can take it away.
Stephen just got done explaining the FAFSA and state aid. And so when we help students and parents complete the FAFSA, or when the parents or students do it on their own, we always get phone calls asking, what is this EFC on my page, on my confirmation page? Well, the EFC is actually what colleges really use the FAFSA for. All right, remember this formula, or you don't have to remember it, but you can remember it for this session. It is cost of attendance minus EFC equals financial need. So let me give you an example. I don't want to go too deep with it, but if a school gets your FAFSA and they look at your household income and they determine that your EFC, whatever formula they use, if they determine that your EFC is say 10,000, that EFC is 10,000 for every school you apply to. It doesn't change with cost of attendance. So say, for instance, I want to go to a school that costs $40,000 cost of attendance. My EFC is 10,000. So 40, which is cost of attendance, minus 10,000, which is my EFC, equals my financial need, which would be $30,000. So now the school sees that my financial need is $30,000, and they're going to try to accommodate me on that. And when I say your need, that means scholarships, grants, loans. They're going to try to give you that $30,000 or close, so close to it to satisfy your financial need. Well, remember, no matter the cost of the attendance, the EFC doesn't change. So say, for instance, the cost of attendance for the next school I'm applying to is $25,000. My EFC still does not change. It is still $10,000. So $25,000 minus $10,000 is $15,000. So now the school's going to try, my financial need at that school is $15,000. The school's going to try to accommodate me on that, meaning once again, scholarships, grants, loans. So that's what that EFC number is that you see on your confirmation page if you ever looked at it after completing the FAFSA. And after you've completed the FAFSA, you've also seen what's called, hopefully you received what's called a SAR report. It is a student aid report. Basically, this is what the federal government sends you after completing the FAFSA to make sure that everything you entered on the FAFSA is absolutely correct. Whether that's you spelled your name correctly, you spelled your address correctly, you put the right cell phone number, the right birthday. One thing that we see a lot that it can be really time consuming, but we do see it is that sometimes, especially when you have twins or things like that, people confuse social security numbers. So that's the way that you can correct a social security number on your FAFSA. They send you this SAR report. They actually send it to you in an email where you can click it and print it off and look at it. Or they also send you one in the mail. The one in the mail normally is a different color than just a white sheet of paper. It could be yellow. I've seen some yellow. I've seen some red. But it will show you everything that you've entered on the FAFSA. And they also will put boxes underneath it to allow you to correct those, what you put on the FAFSA if need be. So I've had parents have to do that with socials. I've seen them have to do it with birthdays. And what you do is you make the correction, you send it back to the address that you received it from, and the federal government will actually access your FAFSA and make that change for you, okay? Now, for the parents who have seniors as of today, they are graduating in the next month or so. Typically, we see that seniors apply, and we often try to encourage seniors to apply to at least 3 schools. Say I've applied to 3 or 4 schools. If I've applied to all these schools, I should have what's called a student web account, all right? That is a login to that school's portal. This is something that I often try to push the students to check every day. This is where you go to see what the school needs from you. Any type of documentation, any type of financial awards, this is all going to be on their student web account, and they have to have a login. If they do not, they might want to call the college and see why they haven't received it. Or if they have one and they just, for some reason, can't log in, they can call the actual school and they can reference them to someone that can help them reset that web account, okay? But it is very, very important that your student checks that every other day, okay? And here's one of the reasons why, because the word is verification. When a lot of students and parents hear the word verification, they get nervous. They feel like they've done something wrong. Guys, verification does not mean you've done something wrong. Actually, some people are picked randomly for verification. Other people, you might have something on your FAFSA that they just want to address. It doesn't mean it's wrong. They just want you to verify that that information is correct. I'll give you an example. Some schools have, dependent and independent forms. What that means is they want you to prove something. It could be as minor as, hey, on the FAFSA, you put that we see that you have 5 people in your household and 1 in college. On this sheet of paper, can you name those 5 people that live in your household? You fill it out, you answer the questions, you sign it, parent signs it, you send it in. And here's why that's so important, guys, because no matter what type of scholarship money the school has offered your senior, no matter what type of grants you think you're going to get or loans, they will not be accessible until you have fulfilled the verification process for that school. I actually just helped a father today that wants to know why he hadn't seen any money posted on his student's account. And it's probably because the student has verification documentation that he needs to turn in. So make sure your students are checking that student web account. That is something that we also can help you with here. If you're lost on what verification forms they need, maybe you need to call us or call our offices, any 3 offices, and set up an appointment, and we can walk you through that process, okay? Now, once we've completed the verification process, the schools have processed all your financial aid documentation they need, that's when they start to send out what's called financial aid offers, okay? Once again, I've applied to 4 schools, I've checked my web account, I've done all that, I've completed verification. Now is where we sit down as a family, we look at all my financial aid offers, and we figure out which one is the best fit for our family. Stephen talked earlier about choosing the best fit, and one of the factors was financially, can we afford it? Well, if that's the case, this is one of the times that we sit down and we decide which school, if it's one or two, which school is actually giving us the best financial, helping us make the best financial decision. Okay. Now, guys, I see this a lot. Some students come in, they know that they don't have enough money to actually pay for that school out of pocket. They don't get enough scholarships. Maybe they don't have enough grants, and they want to take out a loan to close that gap. Well, the truth of the matter is, a freshman, an incoming freshman into any college, no matter what your household income is, the max that a freshman can take out going to college is $5,500. Okay. If a student gets that $5,500 on their financial aid offer, they have three options. The first option is they can accept that entire $5,500. They can decline that entire $5,500, or they can accept that loan, but only take out a portion. If they don't need the entire $5,500, they only need $2,500. They have an option to do that. Okay. The loan counseling is what you have to do before you accept that loan. So we get a lot of students and parents who come in and they want help doing the loan counseling. You use your FSA ID that you've created to fill out the FAFSA. The school will typically tell you what website you need to go to. You go there. The loan counseling takes about 20 to 25 minutes. All it is for parents and students, and it's basically for students, but parents also like to sit in on it and just make sure that you read everything. They give you the answers, but they want you to understand that you are taking out a federal loan, and you are, and they are determined to make you understand that you have to pay those loans back. So that's what the loan counseling is about. After you do the loan counseling, then you have to sign what's called a master promissory note. And that is a document that you're telling the school that you know that once you take this loan out, you are mandated to pay it back once you're done. And when I say you're mandated to pay it back, you start paying student loans back 6 months after you graduate from college, or anytime you fall below a part-time student, which is 6 hours. So that's when you start paying loans back. So that all goes into loan counseling, master promissory note. Once again, if you actually need help with that, you can call our offices, all three offices, and we can set up an appointment with you to help you walk you through that process. Okay. And then those are things that you use, and reporting changes to the FAFSA. Here's something that I'm going to keep this really, really short, but I'll give you an example. Sometimes we have parents who, when they initially fill out the FAFSA, they're married. Okay. And within the next 2 or 3 months, maybe they get separated, they get divorced. Now they want to go change the FAFSA because they don't have to put both parents' income, it's only one. Well, those are things that we can't go back and change, and you can't go back and change. The only person that can make those changes are the schools. Okay. So that's when the school can actually go in and determine if they can go back and change it, and they will make that correction to the FAFSA. So that's what means report changes to the FAFSA to the school. Minor things like that, or well, that's not minor, but there's other small minor things that that you report also. So we're going to keep moving. Go to the next screen. We're going to talk about summer planning. Okay, these are things that need to be happening in the next, I would say, the next 4 or 5 months. Housing. If your senior plans to stay on campus, I hope that they have already filled out a housing application, and more than likely they have already been prompted to send in a housing deposit. Okay. Now, guys, I'll be honest, this can get expensive, because if you're still in limbo about what college you're actually going to, and you've applied to 3 or 4 colleges, normally housing deposit costs anywhere from $40 to $60. So that could get expensive if you're spending $40 to $60 on 4 schools. But sometimes it's what you have to do to make sure that you have a room available for you. Now, for those parents of seniors who are just now deciding that they want to stay on campus, it might be a little bit too late. All right. Housing, that process, these schools fill up so quickly with students who want to stay there. But I'm not saying that it's the end of the world, because we often see that some students actually stay on campus the first semester, kind of see that it's not for them. They move home the next semester, continue going to the institution, but maybe just move home. And then that will free up a room for your seniors. So tell them to stay on the list if possible, and check in randomly to see if housing is available. Also, orientation. Now, guys, I often tell students this. Look, they've been doing the same thing for the last 12 or 13 years. They've been getting up at the same time, getting out at the same time. And now it's the actual opportunity for them to choose when they get up. I'll give you an example. When I was in college, I'm an early bird. I like to get up, start my day early, get my day over with pretty early, and have the rest of the afternoon to do whatever I need to do. Well, my roommate, he was the total opposite. He liked to sleep in. He liked to start his day at maybe 12 and take classes from 12 to 5, while my day went from 8 to 12. So in college, you get that type of opportunity. But here's the thing. You typically have about 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 orientation dates during the summer. My personal advice is to try to choose one of the first 4. That way, if you want to customize your schedule the way you need it or the way you want it, you have those opportunities. Because if you wait too long and maybe take 5, 6, or 7, some classes have already been chosen, you just get what's left over. So if you are interested, if your senior's interested in customizing their schedule the way they need it, with that means hours, that means days, I would try my best to get into early orientation. And orientation is when you actually go on campus, you meet your advisors, you fill out any other documentation they need from you. You also find out what your classes are, things like that. It is one of the best days of a senior, well, transitioning seniors day at college. They just get to see the whole spectrum of what the upcoming year will bring, okay? You also kind of do course registration at orientation. That is when, and I advise seniors and senior parents to make sure that you know what courses, if you know what major you're thinking about initially going into college, just make sure you can, normally schools have manuals you can check and see what the course registration is and what course you need to take and things like that. And also the counselor at orientation can help you determine things like that. The next thing you see is pay your bill, payment plan. Now, different schools have different policies. So this is a great time in orientation to find out what that policy is. Some schools want your bill paid by the first day that classes start. Some give you payment options. When I say payment options, they still give you options. Some want you to pay it during the summer. So you might have June, July, and August to pay it. Some schools will let you pay it in the fall. That being September, October, November, December. It just depends on the school's policies. So that is another question you can find out at orientation. Summer development. Now, I don't know if, I'm sure if you've ever heard us speak about senior or junior timelines, we talk about how important it is to do well on the ACT, because we don't want your students to have to take remedial courses. For those who don't know, remedial courses are courses that your student have to take at whether it's a 2-year community college or a 4-year public or private university that actually they have to take, you have to pay for, but they don't go toward your college degree. And we hate that. So one thing schools offer is what's called summer development, is where you can actually take some classes depending on your ACT sub scores. If you're going to take remedial courses, a summer development program is where you can actually go to that campus, stay there for a summer semester, maybe that semester is a month, maybe it's a couple weeks, but the student can actually take the courses that they would have to take in remedial courses the next semester. So if they can get those out of the way in the summer, that frees them up to take their college prep, the college ready courses in the fall, which is awesome. So I know that all 8 of our public 4-year schools offer that. So if that's something that you think you're interested in, maybe you should talk to your local recruiter about it, have your senior call the recruiter who they've been in contact with and see can they set that up or give you more information on it. Now, Summer Bridge. Summer Bridge is also very, something that's very popular. Look, guys, college and high school are 2 different things. On a high school campus, it's typically small. You know where you're going. You've been going there for years. On a college campus, it's not really the same thing. So what schools offer is what's called a Summer Bridge program. That is actually where you can actually go there and say, get your feet wet. You'll figure out where is the math department, in distance from my dorm rooms. These are things that will help you out, because when the fall semester hits and everything is just, everybody's going haywire, everybody's trying to figure out what their classes are on the first day, it can really get hectic. It can really be frustrating. It can really be overwhelming. So Summer Bridge is something that a lot of students we see take advantage of. If that's something you're interested in, you can contact your local school to see what dates they have for those. Also, this seems very minor, but it's very important. Roommates. I know a lot of your students are probably rooming with their friends. Well, it's easy to communicate with them and figure out, hey, what are you bringing to our dorm room? What are you bringing to our dorm room? If you've ever toured a dorm room at college, guys, you know that they're not huge. So you can't have double of anything in there but a bed, and most of the room is consumed. So if you don't know who your roommate is and you're getting a random roommate, you can always call the housing department, get that roommate's number. It is the perfect way to start communicating, figure out what you're bringing, what he's bringing, what she's bringing, just so you won't have a lot of clutter in the room, okay? Another factor, the very last bullet on here is buying books. Now, the most, I guess the simplest thing to tell you to buy books is go to the bookstore. But guys, books can be so expensive. So we found other ways of students buying books. You can, if schools allow you to rent books, you can go to like Amazon, rent a book for $25 for a semester instead of going to maybe a bookstore and paying $650 for it. And then when you return it after the semester, they only give you $30 for it, you know? So that can be very frustrating. So look into options. Some students sell old books. You might go into the student union. Your senior might go into the, or your college freshman might go into the student union and see where people are selling books. Whichever way best fits your purpose, I would do that, okay? We're gonna keep moving. The next set of bullets is freshman transition. These things are really real. The first one, we'll keep it simple. You see it, homesickness. Students think they're so ready to leave their parents, or they're ready to leave the nest and live on their own and do this. But guys, we often find that a lot of freshmen get homesick. They miss their own beds. They miss their family. They miss their friends. This is common. Some battle through it. It might take a couple weeks. It might take a whole semester. But there are ways to get around that. They meet new friends. They join new groups. Things like that will help with the whole epidemic of homesickness, okay? Study skills. Guys, I often preach this a lot. The things that your seniors are doing in high school might not transition over into college, meaning study skills. If they study at study hall right before that actual class in high school, that's probably not going to cut it in college. You have to figure out new study skills, whether that's taking notes, whether that's, hey, putting the recorder on your iPhone and you're recording the professor, and then you go back to your room and you jot those that recording down on note cards. Whatever helps your student best prepare for this transition, I would encourage them to do. People often say that before something becomes a habit, you need to do it 21 times. So I encourage students to start trying to do things 21 times, study methods 21 times to form a new habit, okay? Time management, that's something new in college. Students' high school days are pretty structured. They know what they're doing every day. They know what to do when they get out of school. They know to go home and do their homework and things like that. But on college, guys, there is something going on every single day on a college campus. So now they have to determine, am I going to my room and study, or am I going to go to the student union and watch the DJ that they have out there, or things like that. So just make sure we talk to our students about time management. It is a huge factor in making that freshman transition. Organization. If your student is not organized, if they have a hard time keeping up with things, that might be a really big issue once they become a college freshman. Try to encourage them to be more organized, keeping things in binders, keeping things on their desk, checking things every single day to make sure they're up to par on things they have to do for college. That will help them be successful being an incoming freshman. Attending class, guys. Here's the thing. It's really, really tough for students to make that transition of mom and dad not waking them up every morning to go to class. And in college, they are finally on their own. They have to set their own alarm clocks. They have to get up and be at class on time. With that being said, if I take a class that meets 3 times a week, that means I can miss that class an entire semester 4 times with an unexcused absence. And then they drop me from that class, which translates into a 0. So it's very important for your students to understand that they need to get up and go to class every single day. Whether that means setting 3 or 4 alarm clocks, mom and dads, I know you're still going to do the mom and dad thing and call them every morning. If that's what it takes to get them up and get them to class on time and make sure they don't miss it, we need to explore every option, okay? Another thing is financial challenges. There's a lot of places to eat on college campuses, whether it's the student union, whether there's a local pizza joint right off campus, and students get encouraged or get influenced by other students to start splurging a little bit. And if you give them money monthly or weekly, or they have a part-time job and they get money or weekly, it's very, very common for that money to be spent because they are out there trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you know, late night studying equals late night snacking, and things like that can add up. So just make sure we have a conversation with them about the financial challenges of being a freshman and spending money wisely. With that being said, we go into our last bullet, the freshman 15. The freshman 15 is real. Study shows that students normally put on about 15 pounds their freshman year. That's because they get to eat a meal if they're on a meal plan, they eat They can eat 3 times a day. Like I said, late night studying means late night snacks. When they're with a group of friends, we all pitch in money and we buy pizza. That can put on 15 pounds before you know it. So we often encourage freshmen to find a local gym. A lot of schools have gyms on their campus, and it's free for students. Actually, you pay for the year tuition. They think it's free, but hey, we'll let them think that as long as they'll get in there, okay? So let's encourage them to take advantage of the local gyms and things like that, because the freshman 15 is real. All right, guys, so I'm gonna make the transition over to Stephen. He's next, and he's gonna share his screen, so give us a moment.
All right, so a lot of the things that fly in high school, as far as students, you may know some good study habits already, but it's important to also determine your learning style. And what I mean by that is, for some students, and I see it every day when we do workshops, their impulse is to always go to the very back of the classroom and sit down, or the very back of the auditorium, and sometimes they'll be engaged, sometimes they won't. The difference is, when you're going to college, you're actually paying for it. So it's going to be important that they're actually not only just engaged, but they also know how they learn and how they study. For some students, when they take notes in class, it will be in their best interest to not just look at those notes once and then never look at them again. What some students have found out is that if they even take those notes and then rewrite those notes in between classes, when in a better handwriting, use highlighting, use acronyms, use flashcards, just whatever it takes for your student to really just grasp the concepts that are being taught in those classes. And I mean, even using myself, for example, I thought I was a great writer until I took my first freshman English class, not English Comp, but it was another class. Either way, my first paper was marked up. It looked like a murder scene. There was just red everywhere because I didn't know that I was making so many mistakes in writing. Well, my teacher allowed me to rewrite the essay, but then he encouraged me to go to the writing center and get the paper edited, which is, another one of the resources I'm going to talk to you about in a second. But that became my new practice. Every time I would write an essay for class, I would make sure I got it done a few days early so that I had time to go to the writing center that was available on campus, get the paper edited, and make whatever necessary changes before I turned it in. And this, once again, improved my grades. It turned out to be very beneficial for me. So there's no right or wrong, particularly in this. It's just best for the student to determine what is going to best be their best learning style and learning practices. Also, you want to make sure that you're making the best use of your time. Danny mentioned this a minute ago: estimate study and work time, because we know that students are not just there to be in books all day long. But if they are not already, I would really encourage students to get a planner, whether it's a yearly planner, weekly planner, and just start plotting out, these are the times that I'm going to go to the library. If I have a work study job, these are the times that work for me in between classes, where I can still get the hours in and make the money that I need for either to help out with the tuition or just so I can have spending money. But students that are on a structured schedule like that are normally performing better because, like I said, they've already factored in their study time. So once again, these are things that we don't think about in the admissions process, but making that transition and getting adjusted to college life is very, very important. So also, this is something that they definitely want to do, is ask for help, okay? Because we don't just want them to get into college, we want them to be successful in college. And some things that help out with that is not just about the grades that you make. There are a lot of enriching experiences that are going to come from the organizations that your student becomes a part of, the internship opportunities that they take advantage of, the study abroad opportunities that they take advantage of. Because colleges, a lot of them, especially our more selective schools, have what's called a holistic admissions process. So they're not just looking at your students' grades or their ACT score. They want to know what's on that high school resume, how much community service has the student done, what extracurricular activities are they involved in. Because once again, a lot of times those students are performing better and just getting more and getting the most out of the college experience. If they have trouble with whether it be grades or whether it's if they need counseling services, if they need money management services. There are offices on this campus that are designed to help your students with that, which is what I'm leading into now. So some of these important offices, one, I'm sure you've heard of this one by now, is the financial aid office. And I want to make sure you understand they're not just there to tell your student how much they owe. The financial aid office is there to truly aid your student. So if they need help finding scholarships, if they need help understanding the loan process, if they need to just want to make a plan for the next couple of years, how am I going to get everything situated to make sure that I have the money to complete this degree program? That financial aid office is your friend, okay? So I would try to get to know these people by name. Parents, you're going to get emails and letters from the federal government, from the Department of Education, from the college. If you don't understand what these are, the best thing for your students to do is to get familiar with someone, an actual person in the financial aid office at the schools, so they can make sure they get those questions answered in adequate time. Another office that they're going to need to know about, and I just made a few notes here, is the registrar's office, because this is where all your students' academic records are being held. If I want to know what my GPA is, I want to know what classes I need to take for this upcoming semester. I want to know do I have enough credits to transfer into this particular program that I want to get into. That registrar's office is where all those things can be dealt with. If your student needs to add or drop a class, this is their go-to person on their college campus. So like I said, that's the registrar's office. Also, most professors, when they give their students the syllabus, which is basically the outline of the course that's going to be taught over that semester, the teachers will also put their office hours on those syllabi. And this is a huge help for a lot of students. For example, I was awful at French. And I was awful at music theory. The only reason a lot of times I believe that I passed those classes is because I actually took advantage of my professor's office hours. If I didn't understand something in class, then I would try to meet them in my, when I wasn't in other classes, when they had office hours, go and talk to them to understand the material better, to ask if there was any other kind of makeup work, whatever I could do. But at a school that, especially if your student is pursuing a school that has a large student body, is going to be very important, because they may not have space in their class to attend to every student's needs. Take advantage of those office hours that your professors are offering to make sure you can get your questions answered once again. And then there's another office that you will definitely need to be familiar with. Sometimes it's called the business office. Sometimes it's called the bursar's office. So this is where we find out our balance at the school. How much do we owe? This is who you make payments to if you have to make payments to the school. The bursar's office handles all that stuff. They can let you know if there's any holds on your account that will keep them from registering. They may have to settle those in the business office or the bursar's office. Okay. Also, I know that recruiters and admissions counselors, sometimes they throw around college lingo that your students may not be familiar with. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of terms to make sure that we understand what they mean when they say it. For example, academic probation. If your student has not met the GPA requirements for a particular program, then they can be placed on academic probation. And in some cases, they can even lose their scholarship. Now, normally, they will still be able to remain at the school, but it could affect their financial aid for the upcoming semester. Okay, credit hours. They want to make sure that that your students are meeting the credit hour requirements for scholarships as well. We mentioned MTAG, we mentioned MESG and HELP, those other state grants just a minute ago. And for all of those grants, students have to be taking at least 15 hours. Now, in most colleges, the structure of their classes, each class is typically about 3 hours per class, and some labs may be an additional hour. Well, for students to find this out, they just need to make sure they're taking the correct amount of hours the correct amount of classes to maintain their scholarships and to graduate on time with that particular degree program. I think I will talk about dropping and adding classes as well. So let's say that your student is they're taking 18 hours. So that means they're taking, in most cases, 6 classes. And they find this course load to be a little bit too much for them because they have a lot of they're playing a sport and they're involved in other organizations and they find themselves being overwhelmed. Okay, well, there's a deadline by which students can actually drop one of their classes. So once again, they'll go to the registrar, talk to them about getting out of that class, or they find out that they need a certain class to graduate on time, but they didn't enroll for it when they initially selected all their courses. They still have the option to go to the registrar's office and add that class, okay? So definitely want to find out when those deadlines are, when a student can still add, when they can still drop classes to still receive credit for that course. And I'll also talk about FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Now, I know a lot of times parents, as you want to find out about your student's academic progress, you may want to call the school and say, hey, I want to know what Johnny made on, in this class last semester. Okay, or I want to know about his financial aid if he has any documents missing. Well, in order for you as a parent to be able to call and find out that information, they have to have on file what's called FERPA, the Family and Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Okay, and so basically it's just a document stating that you have rights to your students' information. So if you want to know more about that, if you know for sure you haven't already signed it, you want to know more, you definitely contact us and we can walk you through that. Now, with majors, I encourage students to find out exactly what that course curriculum is for that major. This is what I mean by that. I have a student that I was working with that was attending a community college, and he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna major in computer technology. Okay, so he started his first semester and did very well in computer technology. But he knew that he always eventually wanted to transfer to a university and get a degree in computer science. Well, they sound like the same thing, but they're really not, because there was a computer science associate's program as well. Well, the curriculum were totally different for each program. So it's important for your students, if they already know what they want to major in, I would go to the college's website and download the course curriculum for that major so they'll know year by year and semester by semester what classes they need to have to get that particular degree program. Okay, and definitely if there are internships available, make sure that your students are taking advantage of those, because once again, this not only gets them experience in that particular field, but it will also help them build their network. Having said all that, we have come to the end of the webinar. Of course, we wanted to make sure we gave you some time if anybody had any additional questions. But these are email addresses in case you want to contact Brandy, Danny, or myself. You can definitely do that. We'll be glad to answer any of your questions. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it back over to Brandy.
Thanks, Stephen and Danny. This concludes today's webinar. I hope all of you enjoyed the information and know that Get to College is here for you. You can visit our website at gettocollege.org, or you can call one of our centers throughout the state for more assistance. You can also sign up for our two-way text messaging campaign on our website. Thank you so much again. This concludes our webinar.